I think let's start by really discussing whether engagement has been given a fair chance. And I think that the government is very confident in saying that we believe peace and diplomacy have been given every possible chance, especially of late. Uh, if you go back all the way to 2020, way before Pakistan's engagement with the Taliban, you go back to the Doha Accords in 2020. I mean, at that time, even back then, before the Taliban takeover, there were two things that were agreed in writing, that Afghan soil will not be used to threaten the security of other countries, and that an inclusive political process will be carried out. These were written commitments which were repeated again and again. And on the basis of that, prisoners were also released who were supposed to then become, integrate into society. But we feel that those 5,000 prisoners, I believe, all or the most of them that could, all went back to joining militant operations that were going on. In 2023, again, there was a Pak, China, Afghanistan trilateral where there were counterterrorism commitments. And then last year, in 2025, we've had 3 visits of the Deputy Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, to Afghanistan, other high-level delegation visits. We've all seen the Doha dialogues, the negotiations in Istanbul. And we have seen, after all of these efforts, where Pakistan has made real efforts to try and get the Taliban regime to sit down and really agree to a credible and verifiable mechanism to stop the cross-border terrorism, we've seen them fail because there is it always starts with a discussion or an agreement, broadly speaking, but when it comes down to thrashing out a credible and verifiable mechanism based on information, specific information that Pakistan has provided, we feel that, and this has been now a tried and tested experience, that the Taliban regime then backtracks and is not willing to commit. We don't think this is a case of lack of capacity. We don't think that this is a failure of diplomacy. We believe that this is a clear lack of intent on the part of the Taliban regime, and in fact, a clarity of intent to continue supporting terrorist activity in Pakistan, whether it's through the TTP or whether it's through the BLA. Pakistan has provided information on 58 sites across Afghanistan which are being used by the TTP and the BLA, and we feel that nothing has been done. We know that the TTP leader is housed and kept in Kabul and given a monthly stipend, and yet nothing is done. We know that terrorists who cross the border and carry out terrorist activities here in their thousands are given safe passage and are facilitated. So when, as a state, we know that we are battling terrorism, especially in the provinces of KP and Balochistan, and every day our own soldiers, our own law enforcement officials are dying in battle trying to protect us. And we know that the source is the stream from across the border, including safe havens and military and financial facilitation and safe passage. And when you speak to that party, which is the Afghan Taliban regime, with evidence that this needs to stop, and then when we see that all efforts to get them to agree to a credible and verifiable mechanism to stop it have failed, then any government, any state has no choice but to do whatever is necessary to protect itself. So right now, this is where we are at, and I think it's sad. And we all were hoping, and I think the government of Pakistan, the state of Pakistan, has left no stone unturned in that effort to try and ensure that we could have had an outcome. But I believe that we've now realized more than ever that this has got nothing to do with the lack of capacity. It's a lack of intent. the TTP and the BLA are not the only terrorist organizations that are being given, provided safe havens in Afghanistan. We believe there are 20 such organizations, including Al-Qaeda, including ETIM. And so right now, this is where we are at. Does that mean that engagement in the future should not happen at all? I think that we would always want to explore any possibility that can result in a lasting peace. But I think that there would have to be very strong conditions. And I don't think that Pakistan can backtrack on any conditions that are necessary for us to protect ourselves and to ensure peace in Pakistan. Just to give you an idea of the scale and the specificity of the issue, just last year in 2025, of the 2,000 plus terrorists that were killed, 229 terrorists were identified Afghan citizens. These are only the ones that were identified. And then we've learned that these individuals, when they were killed and their bodies identified, ceremonies were held to celebrate them back in their hometowns. Local Taliban commanders participated in those ceremonies and those funerals. So when you see such brazen and blatant ownership of terrorism in Pakistan, the government has no choice but to do what is necessary. I've already mentioned the 58 sites. I've already mentioned that the TTP leaders that are being provided safe haven there. But so we do realize that there is a human suffering that is going on in Afghanistan. We do believe that is also due to this Afghan Taliban regime, which is exporting its toxic and violent ideology. And we believe now, or I believe now more than ever, that it will not stop, because that is the basis for its existence. So I think that although we are totally cognizant of the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan, I don't think any government in the world has cared more for the Afghan citizens and their humanitarian needs. I think we are perhaps a unique example of a country that has opened its doors over 4 decades to millions of Afghans and given them all sorts of opportunities in this country. And that's something we take pride in as a country. We believe that any human suffering in any part of the world deserves basic human rights. And Pakistan has played its part to do that. But we believe that the Afghan Taliban regime is part of that problem. We've spoken, I think Richard just now mentioned the new penal code, where 4 categories of citizens have been created for different treatments for the same crime. Broadly, the scholars, the elites, the middle class, and the lower class. And similarly, I think a lot has rightly already been said about the situation of women's education and women's rights. I'm pleased to be surrounded by people who have had extensive experience, who are definitely have more on-ground and practical experience, and hence more authority to speak on the subject. But speaking to other people who have also had first-hand experience, a phrase that I heard was that for women right now, it's either the home or the grave. And that's as sad a situation as one can have. Pakistan, on its part, even now, is providing scholarships for females' education under the Allama Iqbal scholarship program. So we definitely understand that need. But at the same time, as I said, any future engagement, I think, has to be predicated on visible, verifiable, and irreversible actions, including complete severance of ties with all terrorist organizations. That we believe there are 20, and especially 2 that relate to Pakistan. A credible and verifiable mechanism to dismantle terrorist sanctuaries and support networks. I've mentioned the 58 TTP sites that Pakistan has already mapped and identified in Afghanistan that the Taliban regime also knows about. Inclusion of women in society and the recognition of their rights, and inclusive governance in Afghanistan, based on the inclusive political process that was agreed back in 2020 in writing by the Taliban, and an unequivocal end to cross-border terrorism. So we believe that any engagement should be conditional on this. Now, even the aid that is currently going in there, we believe that it is going in there with the intent to alleviate the human suffering. However, there is a fear that that is not what it may be used for right now, and whether that aid, whatever form it's going in right now, is in fact only facilitating further or strengthening the hand of the Taliban regime to continue to export terrorism. So in a nutshell, and I'll try and stop here, I think that peace and diplomacy have been given every possible chance. I think that any government, like the government of Pakistan, would do whatever is needed to protect itself, especially after having exhausted all diplomatic efforts. Having said that, in a nutshell, I think that future engagement cannot be ruled out, but has to be conditional and has to have very strong conditions which once and for all root out terrorism from Afghanistan being exported to Pakistan, and also includes a permanent solution to the human rights issues of Afghanistan.